There are two stories. First, here's a story about an old and wise king who ruled over a vast and prosperous kingdom. But as he was about to leave the body for higher realms, he called his only son to him to confer the scepter of office to him. Now his son and heir had been prepared very well to take over the kingdom, having been tutored in the ways of the court, in the ways of war, in the ways of conflict resolution, in the ways of running a prosperous kingdom, providing all those things that are needed to keep a populace well fed, happy, and gainfully employed. But in conferring the scepter of office on his son and heir, the old king also handed to his son a small parcel wrapped in green silk, and he said to his son, "This book has been handed down from generation to generation. Read it well." Now the son carefully placed the silken package aside, and the affairs of court immediately gathered him up. First there were the coronation celebrations, and then there was the need to ensure that the coffers were full, because the winter was coming. And so it went on, and the years passed, the king ruling over his kingdom well, but totally and completely occupied, so that there was not a moment of peace. The book was forgotten until the affairs of state, weighing so heavily on the king, so that he hardly could sleep. One day he got up, and somehow he found his hand placed on this small parcel. Opening up the green silk, he took out the small volume, and he began to read. There were knocks on the door, his advisors coming to ask about this or that. His queen coming to ask, should she buy this ring or that string of pearls? And the king said, "Leave me in peace. I am reading." Well, his advisor said, "But we have so many storytellers in the kingdom, and we have so many entertainers. You don't need to read." The king shut his chamber door and refused to answer any knocks, absorbing himself in the contents of the small volume. At the completion of his reading, he closed the book, carefully wrapped it back in its green silken cover once again, changed his royal robes for that of an ordinary peasant, and he left the palace not to be seen again. Years later, an old hermit came wandering in to the city in which the king's palace was located. And entering a coffee shop, he sat down at a table and asked the shopkeeper, "How is your king?" The shopkeeper said, "Oh, he's a fine man. He takes care of our kingdom very well. We prosper." "Oh," said the old hermit, giving the shopkeeper a few coins, he said to him, "Please, will you take this and hand it personally to the king?" And he took out from under his cloak, patchwork cloak, a piece of green silk wrapping a small volume. The shopkeeper gladly took the parcel, and being brought into the presence of the king, handed it to him, telling him of the one who had given it to him. And the second story is also a story of a king who ruled over a vast and prosperous kingdom. But the affairs of state weighed upon him heavily. The responsibility of listening to the grievances of those who came every day, to make sure that there was enough wheat, rice in the coffers, to ensure that his army was well taken care of, because there were always those who wished to invade and take over his kingdom. He had not a moment, and the affairs of state weighed heavily upon him. He too was unable to sleep, tossing and turning at night, worrying, anxious, always solving a problem and there another one arising, the day after and the day after and the day after, until finally, so careworn was the king that in desperation he took himself off to a hut located outside the city walls. This was the abode of his guru, a guru he loved and revered. Standing in front of his guru, after the normal salutations, he said to the Guru, "Guruji, I'm so careworn. I have not a moment to spend with my queen and my son. The affairs of state and the responsibilities are so great upon me." "Oh," said his guru, "well, in that case, why don't you give up your kingdom and come and stay with me?" "Oh," said the king, "but who would take care of the kingdom? It would fall into anarchy. The prosperity of the people would be eroded. What can I do? I cannot leave it uncared for. Oh, said the Guru, then let your son take over your kingdom. Oh, said the king, but my son is only 8 years old. How can he become the king? Oh, said the Guru, then why don't you hand your kingdom over to me? And suddenly it was as though a great weight was falling off the shoulders of the king. Oh, he said, Guruji, would you take over my kingdom? I can think of no one else. Yes, said Guruji, I'll take care of everything. You just go back to your kingdom and you tell everyone that I'll be taking over, and then find someone who can stand in for me. Oh, said the king, you mean you're not going to go over and take over my... Oh, said the Guruji, I'm a saint. How can I go and take over the kingdom? You'll have to find someone who's worthy of taking over. But, said the king, there is no one who is qualified to take over the kingdom. And the Guru said, well, do you want the job? And the king said, well, there's nobody really more qualified than me. I've had plenty of practice and experience at taking care of the kingdom. Oh, said the Guruji, well, in that case, you go back to the kingdom. You might as well wear all the robes of office because they already fit you and all. But remember that in this position you're only a servant, so you don't have to go about all the trappings of the office and all of the. You have to live a very humble life, an abstemious life, remembering you're just a servant. You don't have to keep up any pretense anymore. Oh, said the king, he felt as though this great weight had lifted off his shoulders, and he thanked his Guru. Thank you, Guruji. And Guruji said, don't worry, I'll be taking care of things, but don't bother me unless you really have to, and the king assured him that, but the Guruji said, yeah, well, I'll come and visit you from time to time. Well, the king went back to his kingdom, and after some time, the Guru came to visit him and asked him how he was going. And the king was so happy. He was living a very simple life. He spent time with his queen and his son, and the Guru asked him, well, how is it going with you? Are the affairs of state weighing on you? And the king said, no, I don't have a care in the world. I don't worry about anything because I know you're taking care of everything. Well, the Guru said, well, you haven't come to confirm it with me about anything at all. And the king said, no, I've been able to take care of things very well. My expertise and my experience has set me up very well to take care of everything that has oh, said the Guru, that's really very good. But do remember, don't forget to live a humble life and take care of everything as best you can, remembering that it's not your responsibility. The kingdom flourished richly. So the question that arises is, Where do these two stories meet in you? What arises from your experience having traversed a spiritual path, knowing well the ways of the responsibilities of life, the need to put bread on the table, pay a mortgage, take care of children, a partner, worry about the affairs of the world. In this place we now find ourselves. Where do these two stories meet in you? What is their difference or their similarity? Do you say yes, yes, yes to one and not the other? What arises from them as an awareness? What is it that this small volume wrapped in green silk represents for us? What could it be? What does it contain? What was it in this book that allowed the king to shed the royal robes, become an ordinary man, a wanderer, a dervish? What was it in the king who had such faith and belief in a chosen ideal that he could hand over all to become an instrument, a servant? Where do they meet? Where are you? Or maybe it's something totally else. Maybe it's not about shunning the world, turning our back on the responsibilities and activities of life. nor giving it over to some chosen ideal to become an instrument, a servant. But if not, what is it for you? If I am not the pencil with which God writes, nor the hole in the flute through which God plays, what am I?